Hey folks, I'm trying to multi-stream through Restream again, and using Speedify to improve my signals. Maybe that's going to help with the audio. I sure hope it does. So anyway, I had something on my mind for the last couple days, and that's spiritual discernment. Excuse me. Spiritual things are spiritually discerned. Sorry, I had a message coming across my screen. The reason why is because of just like I said, spiritual things are spiritually discerned. And you know, the Apostle Paul talked about having a form of godliness and denying the power thereof. So this is what I'm trying to be careful with the spiritual discernment, because one thing Jesus said in John chapter 8, when he was talking to the Pharisees, I'm going to lower this down a little bit. There we go. That's a little bit better, isn't it? Yeah, what Jesus said in John chapter 8 to the Pharisees, when he said he was the light of the world, they kind of said among themselves, you know, how can he say that? You know, and they didn't say it. I don't think they said it in that, you know, in well, it was in a judgmental kind of way, but it wasn't in a way that some people might expect. You know, how can he say that? You know, it's like, this guy say something like that. And there's a kind of discernment that's going on in that kind of a statement, to where they're trying to discern after the flesh. And Jesus said to them Jesus knew what was going on, because there was spiritual discernment on his side. So the thing is, what happens when he said what he said to the Pharisees, he says this, he says, you judge me after the flesh. But he says, I don't judge after the flesh. And when I judge after the Spirit, and the Father bears witness. So this is the whole thing. When we come to spiritual discernment, it's that the Father bears witness to our discernment. I was talking Wednesday night. We were talking. This was a subject that was going on in live in Zoom, and the thing is, spiritual discernment is spiritually discerned. There's no formula to it. And it's not a matter of saying, well, this is the way you do it. This is what you have to look for. And this is because God is God, and we don't judge by our flesh. I hope that makes sense to you, because I could tell you spiritual discernment. On Saturday night, we were out at Light of Hope in Ridgefield. And there was a spirit there, a spirit of transference, and it needed to be broken. And but we were in kind of a situation that if we did the hands taken off type of thing, that would be a disturbance. And there are people with that may not fully understand. That would be taking offense to that and say, well, what are you doing that for? And so the thing is, so we prayed a hedge of protection instead, and we prayed against that spirit of transference, which is an evil spirit of transference. And by the time everything was said and done, that thing walked out the door. And so but it wasn't something that was taken into a formula. Oh, this is what we see, this is what we know. But it was a spiritual perception, and where a few of us kind of felt the same thing, and we banded together. And it's not a matter of stopping in the flesh, but it was a stopping in the spirit. And so this is where spiritual discernment comes from. And yes, we have to be aware. And yes, there is an awareness that takes place in our being. But I tell you, don't go by a formula that somebody else has concocted. Well, you got to see this, got to see that. But it's a spiritual thing from the beginning. And I hope I'm making sense, because it sounds like there's a lot of repetition going on in my speech, and I'm not intending that to be. But I want to say spiritual things are spiritually discerned, and when it comes to discerning of spirits, this is something that we have to be familiar with, and we can, it's not a matter of book learning on it. There can be a little bit, having an eye to see, developing an eye to see and see God. Paul wrote this. He says he prayed that our eyes would be enlightened. And see, this is the prayer that we need to pray, that our eyes would be enlightened to what? To the Spirit. See, Elijah with his servant, when they were coming into, when there was war coming up against them, he would say, "There's more with us than against us." And the servant says, "It's just the two of us. What are you talking about?" But uh, he prayed for the servant's eyes to be opened. He prayed for spiritual discernment. And when he prayed for spiritual discernment to come over the servant's eyes were open, and he saw the chariots of heaven on their side. So this is the whole thing of spiritual discernment. Let's pray that our eyes be open and that our ears be open, that we can see and we can hear in the spirit what God has intended. So this is all I had to say. I'm just checking out. Also, I'm testing out my Restream. See how that works. I had some problems with it, with audio, when I tried using it recently. I tried using it twice, and so I've also loaded an app called Speedify. So hopefully that Speedify speeds up my connection and we get a better audio. So let me know what you think. Okay, we'll talk soon. God bless.